responded, and then he says, "Hey, that sounds a little bit like Lloyd."
This is the first time I'm meeting all of you. And I think he was supposed to be sending something to someone in Hamilton, if I remember correctly. You could probably shed some light on it. When it came to my inbox, I responded something that I do. And he said, well, you are in global development studies. Maybe you should join us. I'm excited to be part of the discussion.
So I'm going to be quiet and let Mafadal and Lloyd lead this discussion. So I would just quickly introduce myself and then be quiet because Lloyd knows about me, so that when he comes on, we can talk about the business at hand. Is that okay, Mafadal?
Sure thing. And I think Lloyd knows about it and he will probably join us soon.
Right. So I said,
definitely the topic today was that we want to really, solve the current problem which we have, which is COVID-19, and then, provide basically home, food, education to all who do not have access to it now. And it is sort of essential to do that because, COVID-19 is not getting under control. And we need to really, combine all our collective wisdom and experience and everything to, contribute. So that's a kind of a situation we are in. We have designed a solution, and the collective wisdom of everybody, is in it. And that solution now needs to be demonstrated to everyone to see that, what we have been talking about in implementing SDGs, which everybody wants to do in all UN member countries. And they need to do it urgently to, really protect themselves from all the disaster of climate change and everything we get news, tornadoes are hitting us with, big force, and everywhere, we see the effects. But only professionals, scientists, engineers, they really understand why it is happening. And now we have to really take charge and, make sure that, whatever has not been done in the last, 50, 60, 100 years, now we need to do it. We cannot rely on people who are not qualified, politicians specifically, who are not qualified and who debate about these things, but nothing happens. So we need to now collectively do it, because this pandemic has allowed us an opportunity now to really, apply the collective wisdom to solve the problems. And it's a survival issue, so, in order to really survive all the effects, which we knew as a scientist is going to come, is now coming. And everybody feels that, it has to be done. So we want to do it. We want to demonstrate it. And we thought that the, most important people living on the face of the earth today are, students, teachers, mothers, they are really the contributing, people who actually maintains the family and provides, good life to everyone. So we want to utilize the university campuses to demonstrate this, because we need climate smart food for teachers, students, and faculty, so they can enjoy this, immunity boosting, kind of food which they currently are not getting. Nobody's getting it currently. So now we can provide them that food, and that is a model. So we want to start, with one university and build a model so that all the mothers basically gets trained. They contribute towards building it. And then we, demonstrate this model. And I think Markham, I was just looking at an opportunity available in Markham, is York University. They are building the brand new campus, in Markham, about, I think, $250 million project or something like that, with a 3-year time frame. So now what we want to do is we want to show them that we can do this in 1 year. And, by doing it in one campus, it will be demonstrated that, yes, we are ready. We have demonstrated it. Now you can witness it. Okay, see how it works. So it is not on the papers. It's not on a wonderful presentation we do in the lecture halls. It is really there. So that is what I am after, applying all the things which I have studied, in Detroit, Michigan, in Urbana-Champaign, in Nova Scotia, during my career as a chemical engineer and food scientist, and in Procter & Gamble in the corporate world. I want to apply all of that and demonstrate it for the good of everybody. And it's a new type of commercial, business. It's not social entrepreneurship like NGO is doing, okay? Because, a lot of people wants to do a lot of good work, and NGO is not very effective also. They don't run like a corporation, and a lot of waste is there in that system. So we want to, create a model which is best of all. All the good things which you want to do, if we do it like a corporation and a climate smart corporation, so that no time, not a single cent is wasted. And then we make sure that, it's profitable for everyone. And we want to demonstrate that model by doing this. So that's a model. And driving force, why I am the central person leading it, is that, an opportunity I got while I was 2 years ago, I was in Africa. Basically, I wanted to come to Canada, to solve the problem of this 25,000 Syrian refugees, provide them home and, education and everything. And Lloyd initiated that, we want to solve this problem because these refugees are here in Canada. But at the same time, I was invited by one of the, gold and diamond miners in Africa. And they say the condition in Uganda is really, really very bad for people there. So, Canada is in good hands of the PM.
Dr. Minda, sorry to bother you. I think Lloyd is waiting for you to admit him.
Lloyd is there?
Lloyd is there. I think he just sent us an email. He wants to admit you.
I don't know. I don't see him here.
No?
So if I see him here, I have actually made admit all. So I think.
Just send us a...
Yeah. Let me. I see it. I see him now here. Okay.
Okay. If you could just admit him, please.
Yeah, he should be. He should be here. Lloyd is joining.
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah. Lloyd is joining. Yeah, he's joining now.
Lloyd, are you here with us?
I see him joining. He has not joined as yet.
Maybe it's, the audio is not fixed here.
He should be here in a second. I mean, he's here. Good morning, Lloyd.
Hey.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
Zoom is so much slower than that. Actually, that's why I like using that BiddyPod.
The BiddyPod, right? Yeah.
It's much faster. Zoom
much
is
faster.
just like this relic of
looks like obsolete now, right?
Yeah, it's very fast.
Okay. I think that holochain technology, which Zhang is using, is working actually. And I just need to figure out how to record it and do everything so that, we are 100% control. So is it now recording properly, Lloyd?
I haven't tried the BiddyPod recording yet.
Yeah.
But Aubrey has said he has enabled it on his own server, so it gets recorded to his server.
Okay.
So if you want a copy of the recording, I'm guessing that you have to ask him for it.
Ask him for that. Okay. All right.
I think. I don't know.
That's wonderful.
Done it.
We'll confirm that. And I think then in future, it's nice because, one link allows you to be there in that room every
instant
for everyone.
access. Actually,
Instant.
I just kept
exactly. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and the other nice thing, I guess, about it is that it's a custom URL. So you can see mine is DD-pod drawdown Markham, DD drawdown Markham.
So we don't need to change it. Exactly.
It's my own. So
Exactly. It's our room, which is always open. Yeah, exactly.
So,
That's what I do.
So have you guys had any?
I have just given you entered into a right moment, because I just gave the introduction to Dr. Fahim about, what we are planning to do. And maybe now you can sort of, jump in and see what we can do in Markham and in Queens.
Well, no, I think what I'm thinking about is actually sort of the concept here, Dr. Fahim or Kadir, I don't know if I should call you Fahim, is actually to set up as I guess, I didn't hear what Mufaddal had actually said, but I've obviously been corresponding and talking to Mufaddal for many years, actually. But this concept of the farm school is to set up facilities, essentially, to train engineers, experts, people in these what we call climate smart solutions. So we have a portfolio of solutions that we are trying to put. Basically, we're not putting it together. What we are doing is identifying the solution providers around the world. Actually, Joan is one of those solution providers. So she has, through the Foundation for Building Sustainable Communities, the Climate Smart Victory Garden is one of the community climate smart infrastructure solutions. The garden, it's open source. So we've identified a number of different open source climate smart infrastructure solutions for communities. And most of them focus on food production, but almost universally, they also focus on education and training. So learning programs for residents of those communities. Mostly focusing on youth, but not exclusively at all. So Joan's Climate Smart Victory Garden, this is a concept that would be Community Sustainability Working Group originally. Joan took this on as a project of the Foundation for Building Sustainable Communities. So she's also developing other climate smart solutions, forests and other different types of community-based systems of engaging communities in this whole conversation about achieving drawdown. Drawdown being, of course, Paul Hawkins' book of these 100 solutions to actually reversing global warming or climate change. So the idea is that we want to actually start implementing whatever solutions from that drawdown book in our own communities practically. So working with the community. So we here in Markham, where I am, Drawdown Markham, part of the York region, Greater Toronto area, we have developed a community climate action hub. So we're engaging with people in our own community who are excited about this idea of achieving drawdown. Drawdown, actually, we're framing drawdown as Sustainable Development Goal number 13. So SDG, as the 17 SDGs, SDG number 13 is climate action. Climate action is drawdown. So, or if you can take it to the extreme of implementing the solutions to achieving SDG 13, climate action, the extreme of that is reversing global warming. It's going to the point of we're actually going to solve this problem, and more than that, we're going to actually reverse climate change. That's the concept of drawdown. So we've had these conversations for a couple of years here in Markham as a volunteer organization. So I'm working with a company. I mean, we're not actually doing anything right now because of COVID, because we used to have classes. So we have a company, Resilient World Institute, and we had been training experts, engineers, architects, and others in resilient solutions to community development. So building energy efficiency, for instance, certification systems for LEED, things like that. So we had been delivering these to professionals in the community. And so our Drawdown Markham group is made up of professionals. Some people are retired, but I mean, in our core group, but there's some young people as well, younger, not too many young people, because I mean, we don't really have a lot of engagement from the youth at this point, which is part of the reason we want to engage with universities, especially to start involving the youth in the conversations around actually implementing drawdown. So the idea we have essentially is this concept of glocalization. So thinking globally, acting locally. So local solutions to climate change and climate action. So yes, we want to achieve drawdown, but we want to achieve all the SDGs if we can at the local level. So in our own community and in partnership. So we're moving beyond the public-private partnership to what we call actually a HEPTA matrix partnership. Actually, it started with a quadruple matrix partnership, and then we expanded that to 5 sectors, and then 6, and then 7. So we've got 7 different sectors of communities that we're looking at. So basically going from public-private partnerships to public-private civil society, academic, institutional, banking, like finance, to interfaith. So all of these different parts of the community that we'd like to engage in the conversation. So we're creating this partnership. It's actually modeled on a partnership that's been taking place in Los Angeles for probably 5 or 6 years now, where they have this multi-sectoral partnership arrangement. So Drawdown Markham is intending to create this partnership in the community so we can have these community conversations around what are the actual real things we can do in our communities to achieve drawdown. And our big focus has been on food as sort of a catalyst for the conversation and also a leverage point where we can actually implement what we call climate smart food solutions. So for instance, Jones CSV Gardens, the Climate Smart Victory Gardens, can actually produce food. They grow food because they're food gardens. They focus on educating people about growing good food, nutrition, and a bunch of other things that and community engagement models, for instance. They bring the community out. They can engage a community in the conversation by turning those gardens into learning gardens. And so we've got this portfolio of these regenerative climate smart solutions, one of which is the gardens. Some other things are, for instance, vertical farms, indoor growing systems, various types of other, what we would call regenerative technologies, and almost universally open source. We're looking at open source solutions that are within that climate smart or regenerative community infrastructure solutions. So a forest is obviously an open source thing. I mean, a garden is an open source thing. You can't put a patent, you can't put a trademark on a garden necessarily. Although you could probably trademark the climate smart garden, which is actually part of what Jones is likely going to be doing in the future, or in the near future, to put a branding on this. Because what we want to do is take that infrastructure, and if that infrastructure, let's say that's growing food, can be considered to be climate smart, and how is that? Well, okay, in the climate smart victory garden, as opposed to a victory garden, what we're going to try to do is increase the soil carbon levels. So if year over year we can increase the soil carbon levels by whatever methods you do, and that's measurable. You can do a soil test and you can figure that out, and you can get your carbon levels from the soil test. If year over year you're increasing your soil carbon in that garden, you can say, okay, we can certify that garden now, just like you certify organic garden or farms, or you can certify an organic or a climate smart garden, a climate smart farm. a climate smart growing system or other types of infrastructure, climate smart in your community, you can now certify that, like you certify organic, and anything that grows in that. So the food you grow in that, just like you certify an organic farm, the food that comes off of that becomes organic. It's certified organic, goes to the consumer as organic food. And we would like that same type of supply chain recognition within the climate smart community infrastructure and supply chain realm. So that's actually what we're trying to build, is these climate smart, sort of going beyond organic into a realm of climate smart food, climate smart infrastructure even. So for instance, there's been a lot of talk about wood buildings as having a potentially negative carbon footprint because the carbon in a wood structure, once you build with wood in your building, you can say, well, that's sequestering carbon. So we could now measure that, do an estimate of how much carbon is actually sequestered in that building because it's made of wood. And that's wood that's not going anywhere, and unless, of course, the building burns down, or it's not going back up in the atmosphere. So we can have these what we could say is either regenerative or carbon negative solutions, infrastructure that's part of the infrastructure of communities. So addressing, again, SDG 13 at the local level, recognizing that, and hopefully even monetizing that in carbon markets, whether they exist or not, regulatory wise or otherwise, in the voluntary market. But the idea being that what we want to do is train students in this new realm and idea of climate smart communities. So you think of smart communities, most smart communities nowadays are, you think of the digital infrastructure, the kind of Wi-Fi and 5G and like smart devices all over the place. So these are now, we're adding climate smart to that portfolio of smart communities and saying the climate smart infrastructure can also be digitally smart, can also be connected, and can give feedback to people about, like, okay, how much carbon is this actually sequestering? I mean, it's not, maybe a device itself is not going to tell you that, but it might. Maybe a soil sensor in this climate smart garden will tell you the carbon levels in the soil. I don't know if that sensor exists or not, probably not at this point, but there might be something like that developed at some point that would actually, where the garden itself tells you how much carbon it has in its soil, and it sends you to your cell phone that kind of information, and then that can be linked to the carbon markets and such things like that. So the idea is that what we want to do is have conversations with universities like Queen's, colleges as well, because we want to train people in these actual physical infrastructure solutions that exist. That we're just trying to start to get demonstrated right now. So we have what we call proof of concept projects that we're trying to build across Ontario, actually around the world. We're talking with people in Los Angeles. We're talking with people in for instance, Bermuda. They want to build one of these vertical farming infrastructure buildings over there. There's a gentleman out in British Columbia. This is the guy that set us up with that biddy pod. So he's building a demonstration building in his own backyard to show this regenerative climate smart infrastructure. So what we want to do, though, is work with the universities, work with the colleges, work with the educational institutes to set up these departments, the sort of the climate smart engineering or climate smart sort of educational departments at some point, whether it's like a sub department of engineering or of where I guess you're part of the I guess I saw global developmental studies as part of your portfolio.
The-
So perhaps
the-
something to do with this as part of the department at the university, where you're now engaging in this conversation that's kind of a global thing.
Mhm.
We're engaging now through Energym University, who I've been working with. It's based in New York, but I'm with Energym Canada. So we are actually engaging in a conversation with the United Nations through both the UN, sort of the Secretary General, through the UNGC, the UN Global Compact, but as well as the UNESCO. So the projects we're doing in Africa, for instance, are with the UNESCO, and the gentleman that we're working with in Los Angeles is trying to get everybody to join the United Nations Global Compact. And once you become a member, for instance, if Queen's University became a member of the UN Global Compact, which is a free process for nonprofits, they become part of this larger conversation through what's called the UN Global Compact local initiatives. And that's part of what we're in the conversation.
Couple of questions for you, Lloyd. Thank you for the overview. For me, I think it would be important to get a better understanding of what it is that the university can do. And I'm participating in the conversation as just an individual. The Global Development Studies is the program where I'm housed, but currently I'm not really teaching anything there, as it's largely because of my current assignment. I'm the Dean and Vice Provost of Grad. So I oversee the entire university's graduate programs, all graduate programs in all faculties, from medicine to nursing to law to education to engineering and arts and sciences. If I could get a kind of sense from you as to the engagement of the university, it doesn't have to be just the Global Development Studies program. What is it that the university is expected to do? I would be happy to spark a conversation among our colleagues in different faculties and go from there. The couple of things that I would appreciate learning from you is the very specific details of our engagement. Queens would be excited to have the opportunity to engage in a conversation around SDGs. This is the first year the Queens decided to be part of what we call the THE rankings on sustainable development, the global impact rankings. The SDGs are playing a bigger role now than ever before in Queen's identity, which is exciting. And it happened only about 9-10 months ago. We had the new president and vice chancellor. The three of us were equally interested in SDGs, and we set up a small committee. We had decided to participate in the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings exercise. It's not really a typical ranking exercise. It is more about the university's role on the global stage in promoting SDGs. So I see the connection, and community engagement is another top priority for the current principal and vice chancellor. So there are opportunities that I see, but if you could let me know the exact areas, the specific details of how the engagement will evolve, then you can start thinking about it.
I'm thinking now maybe that it's also probably worthwhile for us to have a conversation as well with Prince Andrew Williams Jr., he's in California, he's in Los Angeles, and he's actually the chairperson of the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors, of which I am the Goodwill Ambassador for. His organization is called the 5 Points Youth Foundation. It's a very well-known community engagement foundation in Los Angeles. This is as I said, the model we were taking. The original multi-stakeholder partnership model came from Los Angeles. We've been expanding that, and now they're learning from us about what are the different engagements they need to to have in Los Angeles to really implement the SDGs locally, or globally, as we call it. But I think Andrew is one of the most engaged people in the conversation right now. He's the one who has engaged directly with, for instance, the UN Global Compact and fairly senior leadership at the UNGC in these conversations around the globalization of the SDGs. And he is the one that's built this network. It's actually a global network of ambassadors like myself. There's something like 100 people like myself who are ambassadors to this program. I am actually designated as well. You'll see that in my email signature as not only the ambassador for Canada, but also the ambassador, because Canada is the only G20 country in the world that is a member of both the Francophonie and the Commonwealth of Nations. So I am now the official ambassador for this ad hoc international advisory board for Canada, the Francophonie, and the Commonwealth. So
Lloyd, can I say something?
Those many countries.
Yeah, so we only have 6 minutes left, so I just want to point that. So Professor Quadar, speaking of engagement, my organization works with the Institute for Engineers, IEEE. And so one of the ways we engage with the universities, we particularly work with the one in Oshawa, but we're also members of the Toronto section. And have been since 2009. We engage students through IEEE for a program we call Do It Yourself Showcase, where the engineers actually contribute to it was a face-to-face. Obviously this year we didn't have a face-to-face, but where they would come in and teach introductory electronics, for example. That's one thing. Demonstrate robotics to kids, things like that. So that's one way that community can engage that's one example of what we do to engage the students. The other way is we were involved in competitions for students on the global level with again with IEEE with their Global Humanitarian Technology Challenge. So that's another way, and that's more of a higher level, published papers, etc. And I was actually in the organizing committees for the Canadian one for the 3 years, and twice on the global one. So that's another one. The other way is the students could be involved in co-facilitating the SDGs, for example, with communities. We've done that as well with the University of Toronto through Science for Peace at the University of Toronto. The other way in our future plans is we've created something called Collaboration Lab in CAPS, where we're working with the University of Ottawa with the students to do design thinking and taking a problem and solving it. So those are some concrete examples of community engagement.
I see plenty of opportunities for us to be engaged, involved. I think, again, this is just an introductory discussion for us to explore a few options. And if you could identify, let's say, 2 or 3 areas where we can start with a pilot project, and it doesn't have to be the entire university, it could be a department or a faculty. I think faculty of engineering and applied science would be delighted to have the opportunity to explore some options. Doesn't have to be a whole lot of things. We can start with 1 or 2 and then see how it goes, and then decide either to scale it up or expand it.
Yeah, so in terms of food then, what are the universities' strategy for food? Are there any developing technologies, writing papers, things like that?
The university doesn't have any direct strategy on food. The food security is something that university has a strategy on, but food per se, no.
Okay.
There are faculty members who are associated with their own research on food-related issues.
Right. That's what I mean. The research side.
I think that
Yeah.
that's the area where we can identify individuals who are working on food-related issues and connect those individuals to you. And then other possibilities can be easily explored through
So if these farms,
departmental collaborations. Yeah.
right. So if these farm schools were created in whatever area, whatever, one of the ways that the university could be involved is the impact of collaboration in sustainable agriculture sort of thing.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
It could be. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But we would have to explore those.
Absolutely. I think it would be better for us to really narrow it down to, I think, 3 or 4 concrete areas. And I would be happy to be a facilitator, connect you with individuals who have interest in food or interest in, I think Lloyd was mentioning about training students. Training students should also appeal to a large number of faculties, through micro-credentials and certificate programs, or even if it is just a voluntary project, through community engagement initiatives, we'd be happy to do it. From my, I think, School of Graduate Studies, since we oversee all graduate programs, we have something called a PhD community initiative. It is about doctoral students working with community organizations on issues of global importance. That the reach is fairly limited in Kingston, but we can obviously consider exploring it beyond Kingston, go to other places, and involve graduate students. These are PhD students working on different issues of global development. And they're not really in the Department of Global Development, they're everywhere on campus.
Well, those are some concrete ways we can start.
Yep.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking, or a couple things, I guess, was that what we've been doing to engage the community, for instance, is having these trees of peace and reconciliation tree planting. And that sort of engages the community in the conversation initially, and it gets things going. So we could potentially do that next summer or something, or next spring or summer on the campus. And then you'd have this symbolic tree on the campus, and that begins to create a dialogue, especially among the students and the faculty as well. And then once we have that symbolic tree planting, then there's conversations that we can have. One other thing, I guess, before we step off, I don't know how much time we have, but is that the idea is that we are focused on SDG